Good evening and welcome to GBC's review of the news making the headlines in 2014. Tonight we'll recap April, May and June. Over the next 20 minutes, Christine Vasquez reports on the stories that stood out for her in that 3-month period.
The 1st of April saw the clampdown on tobacco-related activities in residential estates in the North District. The sale of tobacco in designated zones was prohibited following complaints from residents that it was encouraging antisocial behaviour. The Speaker, Adolfo Canepa, took over from Anthony Lima as Mayor, with former Miss World, Kayan Aldorino, assuming the post of Deputy Mayor. At the investiture ceremony, Mr. Canepa said he hoped to bring dignity to the role.
Above all, I would like to be dignified, since the good name of Gibraltar deserves nothing else. I hope and pray that given good health, and with the support and prayers of everyone, I will be able to rise to the challenge. Thank you very much.
There were plenty of complaints toing and froing between British and Spanish diplomats, too many to make this review. But 2 days into April, these were raised a notch with the summoning of ambassadors. The Spanish ambassador was summoned following an incursion into British Gibraltar territorial waters by the Spanish survey ship Ángeles Alvarinho. As has become customary now, Spain wasted no time in returning the gesture by summoning the British ambassador in Madrid. The Spanish government complained that British vessels had tried to impede environmental investigations.
But with that renewed commitment to working together, we can build upon.
Meanwhile, the Minister for Europe confirmed in the UK Parliament that a thousandth of a square mile of La Líneas Alcaidesa Marina encroached into Gibraltar waters. David Lidington conceded there had been no formal protest when the marina was built. The information had been discovered by GBC in an official chart recognised by the International Maritime Organization.
Was initiated to make sure that the people of Gibraltar had a very direct seat.
And the Shadow Minister for Europe, Gareth Thomas, could not have asked for a better backdrop for his visit to the Rock.
Rather than just having coffee with the ambassador occasionally, as the current Foreign Office seem to be doing, I actually think they need to come out to Gibraltar and understand properly the significance of the incursions for the people of Gibraltar. They could understand too the significance of the delays at the border as well, and that might prompt them to take some stronger action and to be a bit firmer with Madrid.
Diplomatic relations was not the only issue feeling the heat in April. The debate on whether a new stadium at Europa Point should be built was also bubbling. Ahead of a meeting of the Development and Planning Commission, local barrister and conservationist Lionel Culato argued it would contravene the Gibraltar Development Plan. The opposition warned against rushing into things, questioning the need for a new stadium at all, and nearly 7,000 signatures against the stadium at Europa Point were handed in at the DPC meeting. The Gibraltar Football Association presented a new design and argued it could not be built anywhere else. The lively meeting heard a presentation by the architect and 9 objections that were added to the 50 written objections on file. The 2 government ministers and the Commission expressed reservations.
It is obviously my view, sitting there as a member of the Commission, that I am not convinced on either as to the scale. I mentioned the massing, I mentioned the height, and also in terms of the transport and the infrastructure issues in relation to this project. And there are second issues relating to the location. So there are 2 things. One is the design, which certainly I think can do with considerable improvement. And the second issue is the location and whether Europa Point is or is not the best location for this project.
The government announced the Airport Access Tunnel project would go ahead after it won its legal battle against OHL regarding the termination of its contract for the project. OHL is to pay the completion costs, potentially the largest claim for damages in Gibraltar's history.
Whatever it costs beyond the tendered price of 30 million that OHL said it would cost will now have to be met by the defendant, in this case to the counterclaim, OHL. So that difference will not be paid by the taxpayer, it will be paid by OHL.
The Chief Minister revealed the government also intended to recover legal costs.
The cost that OHL said this should come in at, and what will be the final cost to Gibraltar of delivering the tunnel.
A focal point for the community is the John Macintosh Hall, which celebrated 50 years. An exhibition of productions held there over this time marked this special anniversary.
This all came about because one man who died a few years before that had bequeathed a sum of money to a public trust to be used for the development of culture and education in Gibraltar. And that is exactly what this place represents. It has been a centerpiece of cultural activities.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing, and when the first Gibraltar-Marrakesh flight took off, operator Your Flight held high hopes. The expectation was that it would bring more tourists to Gibraltar and foster links with Morocco. The route folded 3 months later. There was a Newswatch special on Sunday the 20th because of a fire at Waterport Power Station that afternoon, which resulted in a loud explosion. The essential services were kept busy, cordoning off the area and directing traffic. It took several hours for the blaze to be extinguished. There were no injuries, but power was cut off as a precaution. The incident was followed by another blackout the following day, with the government ordering 16 diesel engines. Telecommunications failed during the power outages, affecting gaming companies during a busy weekend of bank holiday football and the Irish Grand National. The opposition accused the government of focusing on vanity projects instead of on the community's needs. Ahead of the European elections, parties launched their campaigns on the Rock. The Conservatives did so under the slogan "Standing Up for Gibraltar." They followed UKIP, which had launched its campaign with an open meeting earlier on in the month.
And so the wind blows and blows, and this chap hunkers down and his coat gets tighter and tighter around his body.
April came to an end with the news that new working hours for the civil service would come into effect the following month. They would still enjoy summer hours. The move, said the Chief Minister, was designed to operate in tandem with e-government. It was also an interesting month for the courts, which, apart from their fair share of prison sentences, saw the Marrakesh trial in full swing, the departure of Supreme Court Judge Justice Barrington Black, a hung jury in a wounding case where the defendant, a firefighter, would later on in the year be found not guilty, and a woman cleared of charges of snorting cocaine from the bonnet of an undercover police car.
Developing a truly international response with a cross-border group and uniting Spanish and Gibraltar unions in a collective issue.
May and May Day, a 5,000-strong petition calling for occupational pensions for the private sector was presented to the Chief Minister. There was, however, some controversy linked to the celebrations, with the GGCA union accusing Unite of hogging them.
On your perseverance on the border issue.
The government increased the powers vested in the police and customs in the fight against antisocial behaviour linked to tobacco. The main measure was the designation of residential estates as red zones under the Tobacco Act. This followed arrests earlier in the month in relation to a shop in one of them, and the highlighting of the problem by the opposition. The courts also did their bit and imposed hefty fines of up to £10,000 for tobacco-related charges. Funnily enough, that same month, Spain argued the necessity of controls at the frontier, blaming the Gibraltar authorities for an increase in tobacco-related activities and vowing to intensify them. This coincided with the expiry of the 6-month deadline imposed on Spain by the EU Commission for an improvement of frontier flow. Meanwhile, the Spanish press revealed details of the proposed works on the Spanish side, reporting they would include 4 lanes for traffic out of Gibraltar and 6 lanes in. The government sent the Commission over 500 complaints against the delays, collated over 6 months. It announced it would be opening an office in Brussels.
No, the government believes it's absolutely essential and extremely important to make sure that we keep the Commission informed and about what's going on. Not just the Commission, this also goes to MPs, it goes to MEPs, so it creates an awareness. First of all, the problem is still there. And secondly, also, that there's a duty to keep on raising this issue because people continue to be affected by the delays. And the people who either live in Gibraltar or who work in Gibraltar or come to Gibraltar as tourists. A very high proportion of those who complain to us are EU nationals. We've had people, for example, from the United States also file complaints. So obviously it's important that they understand that we take the complaints seriously, that the delays have nothing to do with Gibraltar. These are generated deliberately and illegally by the Spanish authorities, and that we are doing everything in our power to try and stop them.
Ahead of the European elections, May saw visits from Labour MEP candidate Claire Moody, from the chairman of the Conservative Party, Grant Shapps MP, and from Conservative contender James Cracknell. May also saw a visit by UEFA President Michel Platini, who was a guest of honour at the Rock Cup final. He was accompanied by other UEFA officials.
Monsieur Platini, can you tell us your thoughts on being in Gibraltar? No.
His visit was followed by one from the UK Treasury's Chief Secretary, Danny Alexander. The Chief Minister took the opportunity to announce a consultation process to explore membership of Schengen and the Customs Union. Ironically, Mr Alexander told GBC the UK government had listened to the concerns expressed by the gaming industry and that it planned to take them on board when it considered a point of consumption tax. The British government would implement the tax later in the year.
My kind of personal experience of hearing directly about how that affects people's lives here, that will definitely be something that I take back around the meeting room tables in Whitehall.
It was in May that Benjamin Marache presented a constitutional challenge regarding the appointment of the judge hearing the multi-million-pound fraud case in which he was a defendant. The argument was that Sir Geoffrey Grigson was constitutionally too old when appointed. The challenge was thrown out. Bishop Ralph Heskett was appointed Bishop of Hallam, which meant he would leave Gibraltar in the summer. He was visibly emotional as he described Gibraltar as his home.
Today, 33 years on, I'm still in love with Gibraltar and its people. For nearly 30 years, I regarded Gibraltar as my second home. And then, to my great surprise and delight, in 2010, Gibraltar became my first home, and the people of Gibraltar, my extended family.
Just under 33% of the ROC's electorate voted at the European elections, fewer than in 2009. The Liberal Democrats failed to secure a seat, despite its candidates, Graham Watson, having topped the polls locally. The 6 Gibraltar MEPs spanned the political divide. 2 members of UKIP, 2 Tories, 1 Labour and a member of the Greens.
I don't fly, but I shall have to find a way of getting to Gibraltar by train.
I welcome you all on this very special day.
It was Nadine and Alicia Muscat's big day, the first to benefit from a change in legislation allowing civil partnership between same-sex couples.
We are very happy after 26 years waiting here for this. We are quite happy.
Very hot, it's very hot in there. Very embarrassed, really.
But we
Too
are
many people, yeah. But very excited, happy that it's finally come true and proud.
To celebrate the event, the rainbow flag flew from number 6 Convent Place. 2 motions on fishing were presented in Parliament. One by the opposition leader for the government to state its intentions on the regulation of fishing in Gibraltar waters. The second, passed by government majority, deemed the 1999 fishing agreement illegal. Power generation was also on Parliament's agenda, with a total blackout affecting Gibraltar on cue. Issues that would later prove to be the subject of debate between the government and the opposition were the appointment of Jason Gruss as a government's representative in London on a salary of £130,000 and the concerns over the construction of Charles Brusson House next to schools. And other stories in May. The tender for a small boats marina worth £23.5 million secured by GJBS. The World Health Organization finds La Linea's air to be the most polluted in Spain. And the Governor and Lady Dutton continue with their familiarisation visits, meeting Gibraltar's most famous residents. The month began with news that, although not local, was certainly of local interest: the abdication of King Juan Carlos of Spain. The government reacted to the news, saying he had contributed greatly to the establishment of parliamentary democracy in Spain. Former Governor Admiral Sir Hugo White died at the age of 74. The leading naval officer had commanded a number of Royal Navy ships and had served in the Cod Wars and the Falklands. Another death that was to impact on the community was that of 61-year-old UK driver Raj Giroya. Raj forged links with Gibraltar after picking up a couple that was lost and driving them to Calpe House. His ever-increasing clients from the Rock soon became his friends.
Well, yes, Gibraltar dare to dream, and sometimes in sport, dreams come true, and that's exactly what...
As World Cup fever mounted, Gibraltar celebrated its own success and its first international victory since its acceptance into UEFA. It beat Malta 1-0 at a home friendly in Portugal. At the previous game, Alan Buller's side had drawn with Estonia.
And Gibraltar took the chances when they had to.
June was not to be devoid of incursions. The first, on the 5th, saw the Infanta Cristina patrol boat claim she was in Spanish waters when on the east side.
Miss Gibraltar 2014 is... contestant number 5, Cheyenne Asopardi.
23-year-old Cheyenne Asopardi was crowned Miss Gibraltar 2014. At the 52nd pageant held at the Queen's Cinema, Christy Torres was voted first princess, with Claire Nunez second princess. Cheyenne spoke to us live on Newswatch.
I really hope to be a great role model for the younger generations. Today, as an example, I went to Loreto Convent, and the look on the children's faces when they saw me enter with my crown and my sash, it's those moments that one wants to cherish, and I think if one is a good role model for younger generations, it'll lead on to a knock-on effect and hoping to inspire others.
Now to join me in toasting to the future of Commonwealth Park here for many years.
The eagerly awaited Commonwealth Park was inaugurated by the Chief Minister, who, when opening it, described it as the People's Park.
And to see the whole place change and to have been transformed into what I believed it could be is not just transformational physically, it shows you what the quality of democracy in Gibraltar really is about. People saw the designs in our manifesto. This is what they were voting for. This and the refurbishment of the forgotten estates down in the north area of Gibraltar and Moorish Castle Estate, all the other things that were there, and we are slowly delivering to the people of Gibraltar on everything that we committed ourselves to deliver. They chose this park on the 9th of December 2011, and today we deliver it to them.
And it was a good week for Fabian Picardo, who was appointed Queen's Counsel. The award was honorary in nature and on the recommendation of the Minister for Europe. 3 other lawyers from Hassan's were made QC: former Deputy Chief Minister Peter Montegrifo, Luis Paglietto and John Restano. The government presented the United Nations with a dossier outlining Spain's campaign of hostility and aggression towards Gibraltar during its annual trip to New York, where the Chief Minister addressed the Committee on Decolonisation. It followed the Spanish government's questioning of the accuracy of Mr. Picardo's statements to the UN the previous October. And Budget Day, the winner of the contract for the new £75 million gas power station, was announced, and the Chief Minister revealed a £65 million surplus and forecast growth of over 10%. The opposition warned of recurrent expenditure and accused Fabian Picardo of mortgaging Gibraltar to the hilt to pay for his election promises. Part of that mortgage, it added, was being kept away from the estimates in the Gibraltar Savings Bank's books. Also in June, the first e-government services came on stream. The Chief Minister and his deputy held meetings on green issues in Washington, while back in Gib, the government signed an agreement to harness wave energy and convert it to electricity. The infamous nuclear submarine HMS Tyrolus was decommissioned. There was air traffic chaos as French air traffic controllers went on strike. The Queen's Hotel closed its doors after 60 years. And former government minister, Lieutenant Colonel Ernest Brito, was nominated the regiment's honorary colonel.
Christine Vasquez reporting on some of the most memorable local stories from April to June this past year. Our review of 2014 continues tomorrow when our news editor Stephen Nish looks at July, August and September. Join us for that at the same time tomorrow. That's all from the news team this evening. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.